I can never tell when this thing is actually live or not. But I think we're up and running, folks. Monday night. No Monday Night Football on. I found myself watching the San Francisco 49ers Seahawks game again. The same one I watched last night just because football. Football. I don't really get into a whole lot of college playoff football. But Podcast 1919 is in the house, calling out the copyright stuff last night or yesterday afternoon. I got 2 copyright strikes. And it wasn't because I had the volume of the game turned on. I had it was the 3 songs I played throughout the game for touchdowns and interceptions. They caught that. They flagged it. Not cool. So apparently I learned my lesson. Can't have any fun on YouTube. It really sucks too, because my overall vision when I first built this channel, or when I first started streaming this channel, was I wanted to do highlights. I wanted to go over, a recap and plays of the game and show footage. I thought that's fun stuff to watch. I can't do any of that stuff because YouTube will flag it and pull down my content and yada yada yada. But yeah, guys are rolling in. What's up, King Smooth? Big B. What's up? What's up? Go Pack Go. 13-3. What? How did that happen? How did that happen? It's absolutely crazy that we managed to go the entire season and we have that 13-3 record. Feels good. We got that number 2 seed. We came inches. I was gonna bring a ruler or like something down here. Inches. It's a game of inches. We were that short from having that number 1 seed. But for me personally, I think that was a blessing in disguise because I had to. They released the schedule. Green Bay will now play January 12th, Sunday afternoon, 5:40 Central Standard Time. Had they gotten that number 1 seed, I would have had to miss the football game because they would have played it at about 3:30 on Saturday, and everybody's already asked off work. I wouldn't have been able to get off of work. I would have missed a Packer playoff game for the first time in my life. I am so absolutely grateful, in a roundabout way, that is not the case. I might have to find a new job. If it would have came down to it, I probably would have put in 2 weeks' notice. I would have had 2 weeks to find a new job and figure it out. That's how big of a Packers fan I am. But yeah, 13-3, absolutely phenomenal. Junior's rolling in. Melanie, I like the songs that you played. Of course you like the songs I played. The songs I played put on a little copyright McLovin, and it did not go well with the YouTube guys, or whoever keeps track of that. There's just computers watching me constantly. We need to get our offense together. Absolutely, we're going to dive into that today or tonight on the topic. There's a lot of things that we need to talk about when we discuss what this team needs to do and figure out as they approach the playoffs. I don't know if you guys caught Matt LaFleur's press conference today, but the Packers are taking a little bit of an unorthodox approach to their bye week. Or their bye week as far as a break from football, which is not going to be a break. They will have practice on Thursday and Friday. So Matt LaFleur actually got the guys in today. They went over footage of the game, the good reel, the bad reel. They've been doing that all season, and then they will come back together on Thursday and Friday, and have themselves a practice, which is something that I wouldn't have completely expected. But I think Matt knows that he wants to keep these guys fresh. There's a lot of work to do. You look at the rest of that NFC, it's absolutely stacked, so we can't definitely be lollygagging into the playoffs by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, definitely we'll talk about our offense here, I'm sure, at some point in the very near future. Is this like the best time of year? It maybe. I've really missed the start of the season. Like, to know that there's only a month left of football is a little bit depressing, and I'm don't get me wrong, I'm glad it's the playoffs. Playoff football is the best type of football, but I really like the first week of the NFL, like that first game of the season where you just have 16 games at least ahead of you. That's a really good time of the year. I love the changing of the seasons, the summer to fall. It is going to be a cold son of a bitch. So if we're talking about the weather forecast, they actually have the extended forecast out in Green Bay as of right now on goodoldweather.com. How accurate it will stay, you never can really predict the weather, right? We probably don't even know what the weather is going to be like tomorrow, for God's sake. But they're saying right now that it's going to be about 32, 33 degrees on Sunday, 40% chance of snow. And it's more than likely going to be the New Orleans Saints come to town, but we will also talk about that a little bit more as we dive into this live Q&A. It's funny how the postseason is my birth year, is in my birth year, January. I'm sorry that you got in trouble with YouTube. Don't worry about it, Melanie. It's worth it. It's worth it. You gotta take the jealous shots, and you gotta ride the train. It's what it's all about, 100% of the time. I want Green Bay to win the Super Bowl for my birthday. I think we all want Green Bay to win the Super Bowl for your birthday, but they are gonna have some tough matchups, definitely ahead of them. How good did Dexter look over the last game? I know he played. I think Dexter looked fairly decent. And your biggest concern with a guy like Dexter Williams, now he was inactive for 7 games throughout this season. Obviously, I was pretty high on him coming out of the draft. I liked what the possibilities that he could bring. I thought that we might have a 3-headed monster in that backfield, but so far, or we can't even say so far, it's the end of the season. Throughout the year, we had the 2-headed monster with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. I really like Dexter Williams' ceiling. I think that he could be a reliable back. I think that you're foolish if you decide that you want to get rid of either Aaron Jones or Jamal Williams. But I'm curious if he takes a little bit of a sophomore jump and gets more playing time next year. But he did fairly well. You're obviously worried about him, I just getting acclimated to the speed of the game and holding on to the football. I thought he was able to go out there and play very decent for just kind of the role that he has on that team. So I'm all about Dexter Williams 100%. Just want to say, how I've missed Packer playoffs. It's going to be a lot of fun. It really hasn't sunk in for me yet. It will. The Monday night game against the Vikings felt like a playoff game for me. I think just what was at stake and going into US Bank Stadium, and that felt like a playoff game, and I loved every minute of that game. Even the 3 turnovers in the first half, I was loving every single minute of that game. But yeah, do or die football. I was just telling my wife the Packers need 2 more wins to get to the Super Bowl, and that's just what? She actually had to question me. She's like, 2 more games to go to the Super Bowl? Yeah, it's all it takes. Green Bay needs 2 more victories, and they will be in the Super Bowl. Yeah, crazy. You could lose. I'm going to drink to that. So Jesse says that we are going to play the Saints. How does Drew Brees fare in cold weather? Is he a dome-centric like Peyton Manning seemed to be? Well, if you want to kind of compare, I don't know, use any sort of comparison with the New Orleans Saints, they went to Tennessee yesterday and absolutely just destroyed the Tennessee Titans yesterday. It wasn't even close. They played great. Their team looks unstoppable. Michael Thomas broke the record for receiving yards or receiving catches. He's just breaking records out there as a wide receiver. Their entire offense really revolves around Michael Thomas. And don't get me wrong, when we start to dive into who our actual opponent will be, I will give you the full details and breakdowns and specs as far as what we need to do to play a strong game and come away with a victory. I think Drew Brees is one hell of a quarterback. I think that it probably truly doesn't matter where he plays. But look at it this way, right? If Green Bay does not come away with that victory yesterday, Green Bay moves to the 3 seed. Not only do they play next weekend, but New Orleans then would have moved up to the number 2 seed, and then you flip the roles, right? So Green Bay would have had to go down to New Orleans versus New Orleans having to come up to Green Bay. That is a huge advantage for the Packers, 100%. I think going down to that dome in New Orleans is going to be a tough place to get a victory. I think Minnesota, I'm going to be, quite frankly, I'll be cheering for the Vikings to go in there and kind of mess some stuff up. But yeah, that was just the huge difference maker of that game yesterday. Thankfully, we were able to finally get it together and put some points on the board and play some defense and come away with a turnover. But I will take. They played the Panthers. Thanks, Big B. Thanks, Stats Guy. I knew it was like a light blue colored team because the Titans played the Houston Texans, and that's my fact checker, Big B. He's there for me 100%. I might have to just recruit you to just kind of stand and hold cue cards behind this set. At some point, if the channel ever gets big enough, you're going to be my cue card guy, and then we'll kind of pan a camera over to you, and you'll fact check me at the end of every episode. Be like, no, dude. Get your shit straight. You don't even know what you're talking about. Well, to answer your question, though, I think Drew Brees will head to Green Bay, put together himself a good football game, but we're going to have the home field advantage, and that's going to be the biggest thing. Now, that is if we play the New Orleans Saints, which seems to be the highest possibility But we gotta let wild card football kind of shake itself out and see what happens. Let's see. I heard that the Packers play well in cold weather in Lambeau. Yes, the Packers do tend to play cold or play well in cold weather. They don't have the best home record in January in the last decade like they used to have in the 90s. But like I've said previously, they've definitely changed the feel of that stadium as of late. Matt LaFleur's got lights flashing and fireworks going off, and the crowd is definitely in it. So I will take a home game if we can get it. And the reason why I think I want to see, well, I guess it doesn't matter. I mean, if Minnesota ends up going to San Francisco, that could be a really good matchup. Otherwise, if Seattle finds themselves heading to San Francisco, I think that's just one of those teams that has proven that they can push San Francisco to the very edge and definitely come away with a victory. I mean, yeah, if Seattle were to manage to upset the 49ers, then the Packers would still end up with 2 home games. That's the beauty of that number 2 seed. Seriously, what the hell is up with Rodgers? This one's from Preston. He can't perform like that in the playoffs. Whether it was under or overthrows, it seems like he can't get into a rhythm to save his life. Yeah, Rodgers is definitely going to have to play better. So if we look at a little bit of statistics here, Aaron Rodgers had 16 overthrows for incompletion Sunday. Not only was that a career high for Aaron Rodgers, it's tied for the most by a quarterback since ESPN began tracking them in 2006. So his 16 overthrows yesterday, it was a career high and definitely the most since they started tracking them since 2006. That's not a stat that you want to see. Definitely frustrating, and we talked about, a lot of you guys that are here tonight, we talked about this while we watched the game yesterday. They were throwing 20-yard bombs constantly throughout that Detroit game. That was something that we had not seen all year. It was just a deviation from their game plan. Now, Jones still came away with 25 carries, 100 rushing yards. That's a great game that you want out of your running back, but it just seemed, I think Rodgers threw 55 passes, and that's not the formula for this team to succeed. Aaron Jones and that running game is how this team succeeds. And I think Rodgers will turn it on when he needs to turn it on, but he didn't give me a whole lot of confidence with his performance yesterday that it's going to happen anytime soon. Take a week off, Rodgers. Get your mind straight. He is definitely going to have to play better if we're going to come away with some victories. And if he can play better, this offense is going to be on a whole nother level, because the 16 overthrows, the slightly off passes, the drops, everything that we saw yesterday was not what you want to see heading into the final week of the regular season, or heading out of the final week of the regular season. They can clean it up. I'm still confident. I'm not throwing the hat on Aaron Rodgers. Anybody that says, I don't even care if you're joking, that we need to draft a quarterback and look for a Rodgers replacement, I'm not on that bandwagon whatsoever. He'll get it together. At least I hope he gets it together, right? He better get it together. I'm going to the playoff game. Big B is going to the playoff. I'm not going to the playoff game. Big B is going to the playoff game. That is what, probably your 4th or 5th playoff game this year. Or not playoff game, the football Packer game this year. So congratulations. I've looked at tickets. It would be a lot of fun. At the same time, I really enjoy our Packer parties. I'm going to have like a 20 to 30 person Packer gala, and there will be music and food and Jello shots, music that won't get copyrighted. So that is my plan for the game, and that's I'm going to stick to that 100%. But you go out there and you give it everything you got. What do you think is the problem with Jimmy Graham? Is it the fact that Aaron Rodgers isn't looking at him, or he just isn't getting open? I think the problem with Jimmy Graham is just is time. I think he's getting old. I think that's the reality of the situation. He has aged. He has kind of lost his step. He's not the fast guy that he used to be. His hands have turned into butter. It's not so much the overthrows that we're seeing from Jimmy Graham as much as it is the drop passes that we see out of Jimmy Graham. But if you want to talk about, his statistics and what we've seen from him in his career, what we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is the 10th season for Jimmy Graham, and it is his 2nd worst performing season in his career. We thought with Matt LaFleur coming in as the offensive coordinator and the new head coach, that he would find a way to implement Jimmy Graham more into the game plan. Well, he was actually, where's his targets? I don't even see his targets on here. He was actually had 17 less receptions this year than he had last year. He had about 200 less yards this year than he had last year. Quite frankly, it was his worst season since his rookie year. He had 356 yards receiving in his rookie year. He had 447 this year. So just across the board, his stats weren't there. He had 5 touchdowns in his rookie year. He had 3 touchdowns this season. We thought that we would see that implementation of Jimmy Graham. It goes all the way back to the actual football game that I went to. It was that Eagles game where Adams goes out. You think that you can rely on Jimmy Graham to be that safety blanket in the end zone. We have not seen really a threat from Jimmy Graham outside of twice or 3 times that he came up with an end zone or a red zone touchdown. I think the Packers would be wise. I think Matt LaFleur would be wise to figure something out there. I don't think you want to. I don't think. I don't know. It's almost too late, right? What I want to say is they got to maybe put Tanyan or Sternberger in and get them more implemented into the offense. But it almost seems too late. It kind of seems like, okay, these are the cards that you've been dealt. This is the team that you've been rolling with. You have the flow. You have something as far as what you want out there on offense. It'd be really tricky for, I think, LaFleur to go out there and just really limit Graham's playing time. But I definitely would need to see something better out of our tight end group 100% of the way. I don't think it's Aaron Rodgers as much as it is just Jimmy Graham is getting old. His time has come, and I would not be upset, nor would I be shocked if they decide to move on from him this offseason. If I die of a heart attack, blame it on the Packers 100%. I think there's a lot of funny memes that went around the internet last night about just the stress. That's part of being a Packer fan. This isn't new. I mean, it seems like every single year it comes down to those heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching heart attack moments, and that's what I think that's one of the things that we live off of as Packer fans. Hope our secondary gets good rest and they come back strong. We need Jair Alexander to play lights out in the playoffs. That one's from Podcast 1919. Our defense has looked really good the last couple of weeks. The last 5 weeks or so, they have put up a decent amount of defense, or at least limiting their opponents to points. So you look at Giants 13 points, the Redskins 15, the Bears 13, the Vikings 10 points, and then you had yesterday against the Lions, they gave up 20. But they finished the season with 19.6 points per game. So they finished, their defense finished the year averaging less than 20 points allowed, which is pretty impressive feat. That puts them somewhere around that 9th, 10th ranking in the NFL. So they're not really up there competing with like the New England Patriots or the Bills of the world, who are just absolutely killing it with their defenses. But that has been the philosophy as far as the bend don't break defense. I've really loved what I've seen out of them the last couple of weeks. One thing that we saw yesterday is that Za'Darius didn't have that huge of an impact. Preston Smith didn't have that huge of an impact. Kenny Clark did not have that huge of an impact. And our defense definitely kind of showed a lot of what that means. I don't expect to see that in the playoffs. I think that all 3 of those guys will show up. I think Jair will show up. I think Kevin King, for the love of God, I think Kevin King might even show up. I've been really impressed with Kevin King the last couple weeks, and he leads me to believe that it might be worth, keeping him around one more year. I think we have that option to keep him around one more year after the season's over. He's continued to improve this year, and my God, if he plays good, then that secondary is going to be really, really something to be, a force to be reckoned with. Because you're going to have Michael Thomas coming to town potentially. That's going to be a Jair Alexander matchup. That Jared Cook potential matchup at tight end could be absolutely devastating for us. We've been struggling against tight ends the entire year, so I definitely would prefer that Jared Cook did not come to town, but it's going to be a reality. We're going to have to figure it out. You're going to have to win games if you're going to go to the Super Bowl. You have to beat the best if you want to be the best. That is the mantra. I stick to it. Live and die. Don't cry. Take a drink. Before we read some more questions, feel good tonight. I mean, the season's over. We got a bye week. We don't have to worry. I mean, we got to pass go, collect $200 as far as the Packers season's concerned. That's a good feeling to have. Joe's chiming in. What's up, man? Thanks for tuning in tonight. Big B says he's going to move in. I think that's what I saw. Everything just kind of skipped on me. You're welcome to move in, Big B. No problem. Game last night with the 49ers and Seahawks was a great game. Very good game. outstanding game. It seemed like when San Francisco scored that running touchdown with about 6 minutes to go, that might have been kind of your dagger of the moment, but Russell Wilson definitely put his best foot forward. And while we're on the topic of the game, I'm not sure if this will come back up in the comment string. But let's talk about pass interference real quick, because I'm sure many of you guys watched that game last night. Third down, blatant, and I'm not just saying this because I wanted Seattle to win. Yes, I wanted Seattle to win, but they were saying it on TV. We were waiting for there to be a booth review, but blatant pass interference in the end zone. The 49er guy wasn't even looking. He was holding the receiver's arms. The NFL implemented this whole pass interference thing, and I don't know why. They're not using it, and when they have used it, it's been absolutely asinine the way that they've used it. The one benefit that we've had as far as the pass interference rule, and they probably took a lot of heat from it, was in week 2 when we faced the Vikings, and there was pass interference called that allowed us to have another shot at the play and come away with a touchdown on a drive against the Vikings. But they implemented this rule because they didn't want there to be significant missed calls that are going to impact the playoffs or seedings or teams advancing, and they dropped the ball 100% last night by not even taking a chance to review it. It would have been something if they would have reviewed it and then they would have said, you know what, we're not going to call it. It was just football. Let it play out. 4th down. Let's move on. But they didn't even want to take a look at it, and that was, it just doesn't make any sense to me. They shifted, because of that, because they didn't make that play call, they shifted the entire outlook or the layout of the NFC playoff picture. New Orleans would have been a 2 seed, Green Bay would have been a 1 seed, Seattle would have moved to hosting a game and the 3rd seed, San Francisco would have dropped down to the 5th seed. They shook up the entire NFC picture by not reviewing that play, not calling it. It definitely, from my perspective, should have been pass interference, but it'll be interesting to see if it even matters. Like, if we talk, I'm not talking about whether that call matters, but I'm talking about the rule change from pass interference. We got playoff football just around the corner. There's going to be some of these calls that are going to be really tight in that window. If a coach decides to challenge it in the playoffs, is that going to have a bigger impact than what we saw in the regular season? My money is going to be on the fact that nobody's going to touch a challenge, or any coach is going to throw a challenge flag when it comes to pass interference. The entire thing has been an absolute just disaster. The referees look stupid. The NFL looks stupid. We all look stupid because we thought we knew what pass interference was, but we don't know what pass interference is. And that's my thoughts on the 49ers game. Great game. Came within inches. A lot of fun to watch. So much fun, in fact, that I started watching it again tonight. But what a game. What a game. Inches away. Inches away. Joe says, guys, me and poor another are going into cinemas later tonight to watch a movie, then go out for some dessert. Well, hopefully you're buying, because that's how you court. That's how you make your way into my heart, 100% of the way. What's up, Snippets? Podcast 1919. One thing we can count on is Breeze historically plays bad and cold ever since the labrum tear early in his career. You really didn't blame that on his bad performances? Maybe. I mean, I'm not a doctor by any sense of the stretch of the imagination, but I don't know. I think Breeze will play just fine in Green Bay, unless Za'Darius is just going at him. And this is where we haven't played the Saints this year. I've obviously followed them casually, as I suppose many of you guys have. I don't know how their offensive line really stacks up. I don't know how their pass blocking really stacks up, but I do know that they have passing weapons and they have one hell of a good quarterback, and that guy Alvin Kamara is not too bad himself. So they got weapons all over that offense. I don't think it's necessarily going to have to fall on Breeze's shoulders for them to come away with a victory. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes out. Wanted A.J. Brown past draft. Probably would have been a stud for us. It would have been nice to pick up somebody on that receiving core. I think we are one receiver shy of having something really special on that offense. I really liked what I've seen out of Allen Lazard. I think he's had a great season for a guy that got cut after the 53-man roster breakdown. For him to step up and be the impact player that he's been is absolutely awesome. Sorry, guys, the stream will be ending shortly as we have a chill for a bit. Joe, I'm just going to keep reading past your comments. I mean, Aaron did get hot in the second half yesterday. We need more quick passes. The long passes isn't working for us. That was one of the secret recipes for success against Minnesota 2 weeks ago is that they didn't take those deep shots down the field, and a lot of that might have had to do with just the defense that was out there. They're playing a lot of too high safety, which prevents, in theory, big plays from happening. So the Packers were able to do some of those short passes and chip away, pick up first downs. I do think that is where their passing game succeeds, at least until defenses start playing up and they start looking at stopping Aaron Jones in that running game. I think you have to start looking for more screen passes. I think you have to look at more wide receivers on slants. I think Devontae Adams has proven to be one hell of a nasty, nasty guy when it comes to just being put in as a slant receiver or slot receiver. Those are going to be the tricks that just they're not going to get him on the deep balls. You're not going to get him on the deep balls, not this season at least. But hey, they have 52 players on their roster right now, which means that there is one more open roster spot. It'll be really interesting. They haven't announced what they're going to do with it yet. I imagine they'll do something with it very soon. And I would not be surprised if it's Jordy Nelson. I'm kidding, guys. It won't be Jordy Nelson, but damn, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Just to bring the white chocolate back to the fray. Sideline Houdini is what I like to call him, with the tiptoe drag swag. He'd be a difference maker, but who knows if he can still play. He's not coming back. We're not talking about it. Timeless Mercedes Lewis is who we need moving forward. I think Mercedes Lewis has been absolutely great. I love that guy. I love his leadership. I love the way that he plays. He's a great run blocker. He's been a huge difference for that run game. So yeah, I'm all for Mercedes Lewis getting more playing time than Jimmy Graham. No hard knocks for us next year since we had a winning season. I'm okay with that. I don't need the media and all the drama that comes with that in Green Bay. As much fun as it is to have those behind-the-scene looks, what it brings to the locker room is just a lot more damaging than what, I don't really know what you get out of it. I don't know if you're an NFL franchise why you would bring that into your locker room, but Jimmy Graham had 29 less targets this year than last. I was off by 29. Can I not count? Now I got to go back to my damn spreadsheet. 55, 38. I think you're off, dude. Oh, wait, that was targets, right? So receptions, I wasn't off on receptions. It's 17 receptions shy from last year, but you're talking about targets, right? You're definitely talking about targets. Yeah, a lot of less targets. Kind of interesting. I feel that Rodgers know that he lost a lot of his arm strength due to the fact that he floats every ball instead of throwing lasers and bullets. I don't think Rodgers has lost his arm strength. I don't know. I'm not of that mindset. I still think the guy can go out there and play. I still think he can do what he needs to do. At least maybe I'm just naive. I could be naive. I am a Packer fan, for God's sake, so I see things that I want to see, and I believe things that I want to believe, and I should probably be a little bit less biased in such circumstances. But the guy has a cannon, right? He's got a cannon. He can still go out there and play. He's not Brett Favre as far as the way that he was maintaining his cannon at his age, but Rodgers will figure it out. I told you, man, once we started using King the right way, he would change your mind. That's Podcast 1919. Coming out there and talking like he knows things. You do know things. Yeah, King is going to be the difference maker as far as us in the playoffs. Chandon Sullivan has been playing decent as well. He's been playing absolutely great. He's been phenomenal. Kind of an unsung hero as far as one of those defensive players that we've seen this year. The bye is a good feeling, not a bad start, but a high bar as has been set for Coach. That's my only worry for Matt. Well, there's a couple things that I would take away from that. I know what you're saying. I think at least I know what you're saying is Packers have looked flat when they've come out of some of these games. That bye week, you look at that healthy roster, you come out of the bye week, go to San Francisco, you put up 9 points on offense, your defense just couldn't do anything. I like the fact that they are practicing this week. I think that keeps the players fresh. I watched their post-game locker room where Coach is addressing his players. The mindset, he's saying all the right things, which you have to appreciate. Rookie head coaches don't come into franchises very often and put up 13-3 records. It's absolutely unheard of. He is the most winningest rookie coach in Packers franchise history. It'll be really interesting to see what he can do. This was a coach that I'm gonna take some of my biases away right now and critique the situation. This is a coach that we brought in to make the play calls and to be the offensive coordinator and to get the offense looking better. And that isn't necessarily something that he's been able to do. Now, he's motivated this locker room. He's gotten together a bunch of guys and created a brotherhood. These are guys that have learned and know how to go out there and get victories. But I'm still a little bit... I'm going to reserve my judgment 100% or completely on Matt LaFleur until we get through a couple more seasons because, like I said, he was brought here to kind of change up the offense and rejuvenate the offense. Now, you look at a performance like Aaron Jones where he's got 1,000 yards rushing, 19 total touchdowns. That's an impressive season for a running back that we've had on our roster for 2 years that was just kind of just sitting to the wayside. So he's definitely done something there. But this isn't an offense that is going to be sending fear down anybody anytime soon. And maybe things will change as we approach the playoffs. That's wishful thinking because I think we're going to get a lot of the same. I think they're going to be hard-fought games. We're going to have to depend on an even balance as far as the run game and the pass game. Rodgers is going to have to connect on throws. Aaron Jones is going to have to come away with a touchdown every game. We're going to have to see that out of this offense to have a deep playoff run. But to be critical of Matt LaFleur, this hasn't been that revolutionary of an offense that we would have liked to see. Give it another off season. Give it another year. We've talked about it on these live Monday night Q&As before that I think the Packers, especially when you look at the roster, or not the roster, but the schedule that was released for next year, I think the Packers do potentially end up with a worse record next year, but a much more well-rounded, all-around football team. This is just valuable experience. Let's go deep in the playoffs. Let's make a Super Bowl run. Let's go, right? But we're just gaining experience right now. He's learning. He's a young coach. He's learning the system. He's learning how to handle a group of grown-ass men to go out there and win football games on a week-to-week basis, and they've done a pretty good job of doing that so far. So I'm not sure if that's where you're going with your question, Jesse, but that's where I decided to go with it, and that's where I will finish it. So I was at the Lions versus Packers game, and I had a good seat and was fortunate to sit next to, I'm going to guess, Marvin Lewis's mom. No, Mercedes Lewis's mom. Definitely not Marvin Lewis. I don't know why I went to a Bengals reference there. There's no reason to go there. But Mercedes Lewis's mom, she was amazing, super sweet and funny. So now I'm rooting for him more than I already was. That's pretty sweet. That's a really cool story. It's a cool experience too. Family travels with those players all the time, and you wouldn't know it, who you're sitting next to. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how that conversation started. I'm sure she was wearing a Mercedes Lewis jersey. How old is Mercedes Lewis's mom? Because that guy, he's getting old himself. I got to imagine she's pushing 60, right? Let me know if I'm right. Let me know if I'm wrong. Can we also just agree that Brian Gutekunst is executive of the damn year? I would agree with that 100%. What he's been able to do the last 2 years has been absolutely phenomenal. We have draft picks that we haven't fully tapped into their potential, but you look at a guy like Elton Jenkins on the offensive line. He's had a phenomenal season as an offensive lineman. He's been thrust into that starting role, and I think we have a very long, successful career that we're going to be able to get out of Elton Jenkins for the very long haul. Darnell Savage, obviously one of my favorite rookie signings or my draft class signings. Played pretty much every game as long as he was healthy. He was a starter. I think his ceiling is very high. I think he comes in to his second year as an improved, better player. Rashawn Gary has shown a lot of flashes this last year. We talked about Dexter Williams. We didn't even talk about Ty Summers. But Kadar Holman, I'm not on the Kadar Holman train whatsoever. That was a late pick. Those are kind of throwaway picks. Not my favorite player. We'll pass by that one. And then my memory is completely escaping me on who we even drafted last year. But he's done an outstanding job. Free agency. The ability to go out there and get Za'Darius and Preston Smith, absolute game changers. To go out there and acquire Amos was huge for our safety by swapping him with Clinton Dix. Amos has 3 interceptions this season. It's his best year. He's not an interception kind of guy. He's a safety. He's a tackling, prevent touchdowns type of safety. He's done a phenomenal job on that secondary. 100% agree with you. Gutekunst is doing a phenomenal job. He learned very well from his master, who sat in that chair before him, and he's taken risks, and so far those risks have paid off. And you can tell with that 13-3 season that we have underneath our belts. The Saints tackles have not allowed a sack all year. I think it's Nelson, stop lying, L&L. So Big B's trying to throw some stats at me as far as the tackles. They haven't allowed a sack all year. Our tackles have been doing pretty well. I think they got to be in the top of the league as far as giving up or not giving up sacks. Bigby, out of the 26 sacks their lineup has given up, their tackles have given up only 4. So there we go. There's some fact checking going on. Fact checking, love it. I gotta read lower apparently before I start announcing stuff. You think having to split carries all season will make them use Jones as a workhorse in the playoffs? Have they really split the carries? I mean, for the most part, it's been 60-40, if not 70-30 as far as how they've split up these reps. I think we've seen in certain matchups, and I can probably count on 3 or 4 fingers what these matchups were, where Williams was getting more of the carries than Aaron Jones. But for the most part, I think the focus yesterday against Detroit, and I'm going to call it an anomaly. We talk about how Rodgers throws 55-yard passes. They were trying to get him going earlier. They're trying to get Rodgers' mojo back. Jones was held to 25 carries. I think that was more intentional than anything else. I mean, Jones is going to be a huge factor of these playoffs. They have to go out there and get some rest. I'm not going to say that Jones is going to enter the playoffs completely healthy. When you rush for 1,000 yards and you have 19 total touchdowns, another 400 or so receiving yards, they definitely used him throughout the year, and they're going to need him to step up and play well as the season or the playoffs unfold. So regardless of whether he's fully energized or not, Jones is going to be in there getting the ball. Portner, I wanted to wish you a happy New Year 2019. Thank you. It is only a day away. Do you guys have New Year's plans? I didn't get it. My wife got us a sitter, so we don't have kids tomorrow night, and I don't have to work on New Year's Day. So there's a very good chance that I will have a fun time. The possibilities are high. The probabilities are out just throughout the roof, just above the roof. I'm so excited about it. So yeah, I don't have to worry about waking up with a baby. I don't have to change any diapers. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna go out there, have some drinks, bring in the 2020 year, prepare for the playoffs. It's always fun. Always fun. Always a good time. Let's see what else we got here. Green Bay Packers versus Kansas City Chiefs for the Super Bowl. That is a very common, I guess. So I think we can all agree a couple things. We haven't gotten into some of these playoff scenarios. I think this would be fun to at least kind of go over a little bit. So if you want to talk about, we have wild card weekend coming up. We have Buffalo at Houston. That's our first game in the AFC. I'm a fan of I'm actually a fan of Buffalo in that matchup. I think that Buffalo's going to surprise. I think Buffalo will only come away with one victory in the playoffs. And I think it will come against the Houston Texans. Next game is going to be Tennessee at New England. You imagine that New England will show up and take care of business. Minnesota at New Orleans. So many people, I think, are on the mindset New Orleans is going to be a pretty much unstoppable force playing down there in New Orleans. Minnesota, who knows what we're going to get out of him? If Dalvin Cook can last the whole 60 minutes and they can kind of get their swagger back. Remember, Kirk Cousins was one of the highest rated quarterbacks in the league this year. Not when playing the Packers, but so far, I mean, for the year, he's had a really solid year, the best year of his career. If you get Cook going, I think that could create some problems for New Orleans. And then you're also just talking about, it's the Minnesota Miracle sort of thing. Minnesota just pulls things out of their ass when they play the New Orleans Saints. And then you have Seattle at Philadelphia. I don't see an upset there whatsoever. So Seattle definitely, I think, takes care of business. Even though they play poor on the road, Philadelphia backed into the playoffs. Well, not really. They won and they were able to go into the playoffs, but neither of those teams in the NFC East between the Eagles and the Cowboys looked good. Seattle is another notch above any of those guys. So that's kind of what I see unfolding as far as Wild Card Weekend. We'll see how it shakes out. I think that you're looking at, for sure, Kansas City and Baltimore playing in the AFC Championship. I'm going to just say the Packers because I'm going to be rooting for them to win. If the Packers are going to play an opponent, it's probably going to be Seattle. I honestly think that if Seattle ends up playing San Francisco a third time, and even though it will be in San Francisco, I like Seattle's chances of coming away with that victory. And then that would mean that Seattle would have to come to Green Bay for an NFC Championship game. When you're talking about the schedule and how that whole thing folds out, I think the Packers have had some just things line up for them throughout the entire year. When you talk about all their preseason games, and stay with me here, preseason games all took place on Thursday night, all 4 of them. Their first home game took place on Thursday night, so they were able to develop a habit. They were able to get into a flow. Their week-to-week preparation, they were able to get together before they had the season opener against the Chicago Bears. Now we look at the playoffs on the flip side of the things. Kickoff is Sunday, January 12th, 5:40 Central Standard Time. The NFC Championship game would be the same time the following Sunday, and then the Super Bowl 2 weeks later would be at the same time the following Sunday. So they don't have a shorter week. They get an extra day of rest versus some of the competition. They play the latest game. If I'm just nitpicking at some small advantages that they have going throughout the playoffs, I think those are some of them. And I do think, like I said, I think that Seattle will upset the 49ers if Seattle ends up playing the 49ers in the divisional round. And the beautiful thing about that is we will know essentially who are, like, when we play, if we play in the division, well, when we play in the divisional round. God, stay with me, Nara. Focus. When we play in the divisional round, we will know whether or not we are playing for a home game against Seattle or we will be playing to head out to San Francisco. That's what I wanted to get out there. Maybe I need another drink. Maybe I need to loosen up the vocal cords a little bit. Sometimes just talking straight like this can really lose your mind. Lose your mind. Graham25 checking in. What's up, bro? What are you drinking on tonight? Well, I am drinking a Michelob Ultra because I am trying to avoid a dad bod. I got dad bod to the nth degree, quite frankly. You should see me out there by the swimming pool. Check out my Facebook. I will never post a picture, but you should check it out. Like the page. That's what I wanted to get at there. But yeah, Mick Ultra. It doesn't give me headaches. A lot of different beers give me headaches. If I'm going to drink, mixed drinks, I'll definitely go that route. But it's just Mick Ultra. I was able to buy a 30-pack for like $18, and it's going to carry me through the entire playoffs. So that's the route that I went with it, sticking to it. And they are not paying me to, talk about their beer by any stretch of the imagination. I'm happy that we got a bye week. This is from Number One Pack. Happy we got a bye week because the injury bug finally hit us hard. Brian Bulaga, Jamal Williams, Alan Lazard, Aaron Jones, Will Redmond, Danny Vitale, Corey Lindsley. Where are you getting your injury report? These guys are showing up on the injury report. Obviously, Aaron Jones left the game yesterday against Detroit. He was able to finish out the game. Was able to, like I said, get his 100-yard rushing. Lazard will be fine. Jamal Williams, I think, will be fine. Brian Bulaga has proven it all throughout the season. Brian Bulaga went out with an injury 4 or 5 weeks ago, and they went out and they signed another offensive lineman because they thought that he would be out extended time. It just turned out that Brian Bulaga just needed a day off and a little R&R, and he's able to come back. So I'm not really worried about a whole lot of players on your list. Danny Vitale hasn't played a huge role. Corey Lindsley is probably the biggest question mark because we haven't really heard what's going to come out of that injury. But you look at Tyler Lancaster, and he had an absolute phenomenal game yesterday as far as stepping in on that center role. He had that contract extension, played great. I'm not too worried as far as your injury report. It's going to be nice to have a bye week. It's always nice to have a bye week, get players healthy, get Zadarius Smith healthy, get him feeling loose and ready and charged to go. It's just 2 more games. They got to play 2 more games, and they get another little mini bye, and then it's the Super Bowl. So put 2 games together, find yourself going down to Miami. That is the ultimate goal, and that's where our mindset has to be focused. And speaking of mindset, God, I feel like I just jump all over the place sometimes. Speaking of mindset, Matt LaFleur changed the tone in his locker room. He didn't say 1 game at a time. Maybe he'll go back to it, but I didn't hear him say 1 game at a time when he's talking about his next matchup. He said that we need to get on a streak, and that's essentially the state of it. You can't go one game at a time. You can, but you got to get on a streak. They got hot. They won the last 4 games of the season, and I think they're entering the playoffs about as good as you want them to, coming off of 4 victories or 5 victories. What is it? Is it 5? I'm spacing. Son of a bitch. Spacing. There it is. Came back to me. New York, Washington, Chicago, Minnesota, Detroit. 5 victories. 5 in a row entering the playoffs. That's pretty awesome. Pretty impressive stuff. Jack Bear tuning in. I don't think I've got a question from you yet tonight. I think what is happening to Aaron Rodgers is that he is throwing away from the coverage instead of to his receivers, and he needs some confidence back. I would agree that Rodgers needs to get some confidence back, and we saw that a little bit. I had a comment earlier up above in the comment feed that he looked better in the second half they were starting to work on getting Rodgers' confidence back in the second half, and a lot of that had to do with some shorter passes, some little dump-off passes, picking up 6, 7, 8 yards. I think that's I've said it before, I'll say it again, that's the key to their success in the passing game. We don't have a deep threat on that team whatsoever. But those are ways that you get Rodgers' confidence back. I think Matt LaFleur would have liked to see him connect on one of those 20 attempts for passes that went 20 yards or further, because that would also get Aaron Rodgers' confidence back too. But it's really interesting. It's really just fascinating to watch him struggle. We've seen him struggle with injuries. You look at last year, he was more banged up than we anticipated with that knee injury. You look at the season before where he went out with the collarbone, tried to come back and do some miracle things in the last couple weeks of the season. So we've seen that side of Rodgers, but unless something comes out in the offseason, we have no reason to believe that Rodgers is struggling with any sort of major injury, and he just seems off. And he'll get his confidence back, put positive energy into the atmosphere, and get it all right back is what I'm going to stick to. I happen to see we're waving. Okay, we're going back to the Mercedes Lewis. We've gone full circle with Colin B. So he started waving at one of the players like they each other. Didn't want to ask to invade her privacy, but she pulled it up and showed me him. We mainly just talked about past teams and just kept shutting up the drunk Lions fans talking smack. Cool. That's cool. So if you didn't know, Colin had the privilege of meeting Mercedes Lewis's mother-in-law. I'm a little bit jealous about that. It'd be a lot of fun to be in the stadium, especially in an away game like that, and be able to see one of the players' moms and socialize a little bit. Ayo going, I hope the Patriots lose the Titans. It's not going to happen. What we got here? Kaiser, 3 boys and no sitter, but we'll get it in. Happy New Year! Happy New Year! I should have got streamers and like a little hat. Damn, never prepared for these types of things. What else we got out there? We've been talking for 47 minutes. The rest of you guys get snow? We got a lot of snow here where I live, about 6 to 8 inches. I'm going to find out here shortly, because at 10 o'clock at night, I'm going to go out there and do dad things like shovel and fire up the snowblower, because there's no better way that I'd love to spend my Monday night at 10 o'clock than doing that. Who would help us the most right now? Prime Jordy, Prime Charles Woodson, or Prime Brett Favre? That's a really sweet question. That's a good question by Catherick. See if you guys, I don't know if you guys commented below on your own thoughts on that question. I think hands down, Prime Jordy Nelson is the answer to that. I wholeheartedly believe that we are another wide receiving weapon away from being a really difficult offense to cover. And you look at just the chemistry that Rodgers had with Nelson, and like I said, his sideline ability and he was the deep threat. He was the guy that Rodgers could just throw a bomb 60 yards down the field and he'd come down with it and things would be good. So I don't think that a prime Brett Favre, I think you still have Aaron Rodgers that is playing better than we want to give him credit, or maybe that's my thinking at least. And Charles Woodson, absolutely Charles Woodson. But I don't think our safety and our secondary has been the problem so much with our team this year. It's primarily been what we've had at wide receiver. So easy one for me to answer, but I think that was a pretty awesome question. Good question. 14.2 points allowed in their last 5 games. Yeah, this defense is definitely turning on. We've seen glimpses, or at least flashes, of what we've seen very early on in the season as far as what this defense has been able to do. 49ers game seems like a couple weeks ago. What a good streak to end the season on defense. You come out of that stinker of the game. They put 5 games together, hold the opponents to 14.2 points. And we saw flashes of some brilliance as far as what we've had on offense. So, like I said, needle's pointing up. We just got to put it together when the playoffs roll around. Fact check, the Superdome isn't retractable, and we won't be traveling there under any circumstances. Thank you, Jesse, for that fun fact. That was absolutely crucial, and I love that you're contributing with your statistics. It's not just Big B out there throwing stats all over the place. We now can rely on Jesse to go out there and give us some hard-hitting news. Just call me Ayo for short. That's AO commenting on that one. We got a foot of snow in California. Well, we got a lot of snow in Wisconsin. So California, what does Wisconsin and California have in common? Snow. I'm from Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, but I live in Arizona, so no snow for podcast 1919. We most likely facing New Orleans in the divisional round, but if Minnesota pulls it out, we might be seeing Seattle, given Philly doesn't pull out an upset of their own. So that's the truth of the matter. We talked about this a little bit, but there are 3 opponents that the Packers will face in the divisional round: New Orleans, Seattle, Philadelphia. And when we talk about that final game of Wild Card Weekend, that is the matchup between Seattle and Philadelphia. So we will know before that game kicks off if we will be playing New Orleans, or we'll find out if we are going to play the winner of the Seattle and Philadelphia game. So that's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a cool way to kind of approach the weekend and watch these games and be interested and invested in them. I mean, it's playoff football. We're going to be invested in them anyway, just because it's unlike any other sport. I like playoff basketball too. The finals can be a joy. The conference finals in NBA playoffs can be a real joy. But I like playoff basketball as well. I just want to point that out. It's not just the NFL. But yeah, that's what we're going to be looking at. We're going to be entering that Seattle game, and we'll know right there kind of how our opponent's going to stack up against us. I don't think Philly pulls it out, though. I think it's going to probably be Seattle, and I see a bigger chance of Minnesota beating New Orleans than I see Philadelphia managing to beat Seattle. Thank you. I just Googled this year, forgetting that year. Year is different from football year. Will you be at the divisional round game? I will not be at the divisional round game. I will be hunkered down, throwing a party, and playing my music as loud as I want without the worry of YouTube throwing just copyrights at me. Ridiculous. Aaron needs to start running constant 3-step downs, not the 5-step drop and floating at 5 yards over the head of Aaron Jones, especially when it's into the end zone. That was probably one of the most frustrating passes of yesterday. The first one obviously was the drop by Jimmy Graham, but that wide open touchdown that he missed late in the second half was just absolutely, that was a difference maker. That's a difference. I mean, because they had to settle for a field goal, maybe the Lions still get lucky and run for 60 yards or so, 50 yards to end out the half and put themselves in field goal range. But if they would have got a touchdown, you would have think that would motivate that defense a little bit more. Who knows? Definitely not how you want to end the half. So I will not be at the divisional game. Not in Oklahoma. Got fam in Appleton, though. They definitely got snow in Appleton. No visit because of the cold. I hope we get the Eagles. I hope we get the Eagles, too, but that's some wishful thinking. Veld here played 40% snap. Going to be Detroit. It did just as good as Brian Bulaga. Dude, trust me, I hate the copyright crap. I've been fined 3 times. Sucks. Absolute butt. I just wanted to say that out loud. Sucks butt. It does suck butt. Speaking of which, you guys see... I don't know if I want to go into it. Yeah, why not? Did you guys see that that news article floating around town on the internet? It was a Detroit... I don't know what. It was a Detroit fan outside the stadium eating butt. And we've officially hit that point. I don't know why I decided to go down that road. But you guys are welcome. 100%. There goes about half my viewers right there. 100%. Freezing game at Lambeau. Melanie saw the clip. And that's all that matters. So we are 53 minutes into this, guys. I don't know if there's anything else that I really want to discuss. You have been absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. We finish out the year. This is officially, it concludes the regular season. I didn't know any of you guys 7 months ago, and the fact that this community is really starting to grow I appreciate it so much. It's a lot of fun. You guys rock. The support, the comments, and the videos, hanging out with me and watching the Lions fall apart in the second half yesterday was probably the best way I could spend that game, especially considering how it started out. So that was all a lot of fun. I think we covered some good topics tonight. I will have a final video, or a final thoughts video, on Friday, and I kind of want to do a recap just of throughout the season, some stuff that we talked about tonight. And looking forward to the playoffs, right? What does this team have to do? I think we discussed a lot of it, but I'll kind of recap it in a little bit more professional way. And then we will enjoy some wild card football, and then we'll come back next Monday night and really kind of see who we're going to be playing and what we need to prepare for, and really dive into that. So, again, thank you guys for all tuning in, and we'll sign off here at 9:55. Until next time, I will see you on the internet. I'm going to do an Aaron Rodgers chug of this beer if you guys want to stick around and check that out. It wasn't a lot, but I did a lot better than Aaron Rodgers. I feel pretty comfortable with that. All right, guys, have yourself a good night. Hasta luego.